Now, as you know, a lot of people are very complicated, meaning there are many layers to a person, and until you've gotten past all those layers and levels, you don't really know a person because many people have different sides. They might have a dark side or a side that is more amiable, that is happier, or sometimes people don't have that side at all. There's just days where they're not miserable. And there's just so many variables when it comes to people. But I like to think that everybody has good in them. And that's gotten me into a lot of trouble, believe me, because sometimes I have put up with bad behavior because of that. They would insult me, they would say things that were sexist, racist, ableist, maybe prejudice. Maybe it just was kind of a biased or, uh, a shallow and biased opinion. Maybe what they gave me didn't really apply to who I am or apply to my life. Either way, some of these people don't mean to be offensive at times. Like, sometimes they don't mean to be representing anything prejudice. And they're not aware that what they're saying is sexist, racist, or ableist. And sometimes people say, and there are often times where, like, comedians, where they say these things as to make fun of these kind of prejudice. That's called satire. That's a little bit different. But sometimes people give advice that isn't necessarily very helpful. And I made a post saying that I was putting on my new photo. It was after I'd been hacked, of myself giving the Kubrick stare, which is this. Kubrick stare is literally what Stanley Kubrick had Jack Nicholson do in The Shining. It's a stare. It's a glare. It's a leer. It means don't mess with me, essentially. And I've had a lot of sexual harassment in the past, not just online, but out in the real world. And they said, well, why are you bothering with giving them the Kubrick stare, this woman? And she said, why don't you just remove your photo and put up something that you love? And can you blame them for drooling over your photo? Because you're putting yourself out there. Literally, no, I don't want to be like, sound like I'm extreme, which I'm not. I'm a very moderate person. But when you say that, you are literally putting the responsibility of men's actions on me. You are telling me that by stepping out of my comfort zone, by showing my face, by putting myself out there, that I am justifying and I am asking for someone to disrespect me, to violate me, to make me uncomfortable. Every time a woman leaves their house, they're putting themselves out there. There is a risk. And regardless of what they are wearing, what their lifestyle is, how drunk they are, what they ate, where they went, nothing justifies sexual assault, sexual abuse, or somebody sexually taking advantage of them. No one leaves their house, regardless of how flirty and how forward they are with everybody. That's not always an invitation. That's not always them saying, yes, I would like to go to your place, or yes, I would like to make whoopee. Sometimes when a woman dresses a certain way, it's because she's comfortable with who she is. She wants to look nice. She prides herself as being a beautiful woman. She values herself. It's quite the contrary. A lot of people have this stereotype that if a woman is, has different partners every night, or drinks more than the average woman, or does things, or wears provocative outfits, that somehow she's less of a human being. When you say she's putting herself out there, of course that would happen. That is literally telling them, that's literally saying, is that they are responsible for what happened to them. Things like sexual assault happen regardless of what you're wearing. Because you see it. When you say sexual assault, you think it's something sexual. When someone violates somebody, forces themselves on that person, that is an act of violence. That doesn't have to do with so much, oh, she's desirable, or she's attractive, or she looks really good in that dress. It's violence. It's an act of rage. It's when somebody wants to have somebody hurt like they've hurt. Is that their fault that a man is angry, or that the person that attacks them does that to them? No. From what I thought, we are all accountable for our actions, unless we are, of course, children. But even then, we're all accountable and responsible for what we do and what we say. So I am not responsible, and I am not accountable for what another man does, how he feels. And I don't do anything to provoke anybody. I don't flirt. I don't do any of that. I don't wear provocative outfits and that kind of thing. But by saying these things, can you blame them? These kind of statements are what have silenced women and men. I'm sorry I didn't get into men. Men experience sexual assault as well. Boys do. Girls do. Both genders. It's a risk for both genders, okay? I didn't mean to make this all about women. But that's what silenced a lot of sexual assault survivors, is that, first of all, no one's going to believe them, but then it's their fault. They didn't do anything to prevent it. They didn't run away. They didn't do what they could to get out of that situation. When you're a child, you can't. And the same goes for someone who is an adult. You can't fight your attacker sometimes. You can't overcome them. Sometimes you just freeze up and you black out, essentially. There are people who have had to deal with sexual assault and they have no memory of the incident because it was so absolutely traumatizing. Does that make them weak? Does that make them less of a human being? No. That is a flight or fight response. You either fight it, which means you stay right where you are, or you run. And sometimes we have no control of what our brain chooses that day. Sometimes we choose to just stay there and not go anywhere. And then we are told that it is our fault. We did something. These predators, were we there when they got traumatized? Were we there when their mother or their father or their stepfather, whoever it was abusing them? Were we there when that happened? No. Are we God? No. Are we capable of encouraging certain emotions? Yes, of course. We can encourage certain emotions from people. We can get people to feel certain things. But when it comes down to it, we need to decide what we want to feel. We decide what we want to do with these feelings. And that's what we're responsible for. We're not responsible for the actions and the violence of others. To put that on a man or a woman is just, that's sad. Nowhere does any woman, doesn't matter how drunk she is, does she go out, is she asking to be violated? There's nothing in there. Violating means there's no consent. She didn't ask. He didn't ask. He or she did not express that this is what they wanted at that time. And it is a very shallow and biased and narrow view that we are so much more than that. It's a bias and a narrow view that we are to be measured by our appearance, by our body, by what we are wearing, and by our lifestyle. Everybody has value. Everyone has purpose. Everyone deserves to be respected. Unless, of course, they are completely disrespectful to everybody. But everybody needs that. Do not think for an instant that because a woman has 10 partners a night, that somehow she is less of a human being. Because you can tell this, men do that. They have multiple partners. They party every night. They do that. But they get away with it. Often they do. They get away with it. But when a woman does it, they are labeled, they are bashed, they are told to cover up, they are told that they are worthless, that they are unclean, that they are disgusting, that they're told that they're sluts or whores. And you should not measure a person by the way that they look, because we are so much more than what we look like. We are so much more than our bodies. We're so much more than our clothes. We're so much more than our money and our possessions. We are so much more than what you see. And if you are just judging and people by the way they look, you are missing out on the beauty in this world. The beauty is we have souls. We have hearts. We have so many scars and wounds that nobody sees. And if you can see those, you will actually get to know someone. You're not going to get to know them by just looking at their body. You're not going to get to know them by looking at their face. You have to ask questions. You have to dive in to who that person is. You need to really get to know what do they think, what do they feel, what are their insecurities, what is that, what's going on deep down. Because so many times we get judged for one aspect of our being, our weight, our size, this goes for men and women, whether we're physically fit or not, what we eat, where we go at night, where we go during the day, what we wear. We are judged and biased, and it is so, this kind of judging and profiling is so normal, and the sexual harassment is so normal, that we have unknowingly tried to accommodate it. We try to accommodate this violence and this evil, this sin that's going on. We try to justify the things that are going on. And by blaming another person for somebody else's actions, that's not going to help. I have the right to put whatever photo I want on my social media page. I have the right to put whatever photos I want on there of myself. It's my page. I have freedom of speech. I have freedom of choice. I am an independent woman. And I can do what I want. But by telling people, women especially, to cover up or to take things down, that is feeding into this fear. And when you build women on fear, if you build men on fear, if you build anyone on fear, they're going to be less likely to be able to cope with these things. And there's some things that we will never be able to cope with. There's some things in our past, some things that are just so traumatic, or the things that we come in contact with are so traumatizing to us that we won't be able to process it, to accept it. And that's okay. That's all right. But we need to stop putting responsibility on men and women alone. It's the same thing. It's like a man does it, it's perfectly okay. He has all these partners, it's perfectly okay. But when a woman does it, it's like she's the one to blame. She's the one that put herself in this situation. And this has been the norm for a lot of people. There have been a lot of women that have gone missing. And one of the reasons they didn't go looking for them was because they were the party girl. They were the one with the crazy lifestyle, shaking it all over the place, putting up their hands and swigging vodka, They thought, why bother? But it doesn't matter what a woman does or what a man does. It doesn't matter if they are a sex worker or they're a prostitute. That person has value. They have purpose. That is a person. They have feelings. They have emotions. And some of these people, to get into that situation, they didn't choose it. It wasn't something that they got themselves into. Sometimes they were forced into that. They were forced into that lifestyle. They didn't see a way out. And nobody told them, hey, you know what you can do? You can do this with your life. Or you know what? You are an amazing person and you can do this or you can do that. Nobody told them that. And you know what? Some of these people, some of these people, prostitutes, that kind of thing, they have so much more wisdom about God, about the universe, because they've been around. They know things. They know the worst of humanity. That's why you treat everyone as equal. You don't know what happened that got them to that point. You have no idea. You have no idea. That's why I don't judge people for the way that they look. I don't assume that they're thinking or feeling something because they're wearing leather, or because they're wearing something so low that you can see everything. I don't. I would say, oh, yeah, I wouldn't wear that. Just because I wouldn't wear it doesn't mean it's wrong. Does it mean it's wrong? I prefer not to wear socks. Does that make me evil? Does that make me bad? No. Maybe I don't want to deal with socks, okay? Does that make me a slut? Does that make me a whore? No. It just means I choose to do something, well, you choose to do something else. Just because someone does something differently, this does not mean that it is wrong. And it's their body. It's their life. They should be able to do what they want with it. And it absolutely boggles me that people will go up to men and women and tell them what they need to do with their bodies, what they need to do with their life, when they haven't lived it. They haven't been there. They haven't paid their bills. And I think if you have not paid their bills or made an effort to be in their life, you really have no say. Even somebody that is a family member or a spouse or a boyfriend or just a really close friend, you make suggestions. You don't tell them what the formula for their life should be. The formula for your life, it works for you. It's normal for you. It's not, the way I live my life, it's not going to work for somebody else. For instance, they have another sexual preference. They might be transitioning into something, that sounds bad. The way I look at that, with the trans community is that we're all transitioning from day to day, and we're either transitioning into something, or we're transitioning into another person. We all are. We're all evolving. So that's why I'm supportive of that. And I think we're all together on that. Whether we're transitioning from an abusive home, transitioning from our bed to the refrigerator, transitioning from our home to work, we're transitioning as soon as we leave our rooms, as soon as we leave the house, as soon as we open our eyes. Our life is a series of transitions. And to expect that our transitions are more superior than the other, no, I don't think that. I think everybody deserves to transition into someone that they're comfortable with. And I think everyone should live the life that they want to. I think they should be comfortable in their own skin. Yet again, it is their life and their body. Now, would I transition from a woman to a man? No. I choose not to do that. I've grown to be comfortable with who I am. But there's a lot of people that don't have that privilege. They don't have that comfort and that solace and that confidence. They don't have that. And people should be able to do what they need to reach that point. Whatever means necessary, they should be able to do that. And you can argue with me. You can say I'm wrong. That's your right to say whatever's on your mind. But, my opinion is going to be the same. So, really, by putting your opinion out there in an aggressive manner, the way it works is I'm just going to be more and more determined to think the way that I do. Now, for me to agree with your opinion, especially if it's completely different than mine, I would have to change my whole outlook on life. Now, if my outlook is different, is that bad? No, because you've had a different experience than I have. So you're going to look at life differently. And that's perfectly fine. We don't have to agree on everything. But we are both human beings. I'm going to treat you like a human being. Not just a human being, but at least a human being. Because I haven't always been treated that way. I haven't always been treated with respect and kindness. So I treat people with respect and kindness. Because I wasn't always given that. And that takes a lot of strength, because there are a lot of experiences in my life that should have made me permanently a miserable person. Not just somebody miserable, but somebody that hurts other people, a troll, anything. The things that I've been through, yeah, I should have become someone else. And not the person I am now. And yeah, it took some work. It took some work. It took some work. It took some work to get where I am. When you want to change your outlook, when you want to evolve as a human being, it's never easy. It's never easy. It is a very arduous and very slow process. And it can take your entire lifetime. But eventually you will get there. Maybe we never will get to be the best person that we can be in this lifetime. Maybe it's the next lifetime that we're going to experience that. Who knows? But eventually we will get there. But don't profile people. Don't look at them and think, gosh, I'm sure they're thinking this, or I'm sure they do this or they do that. I have no way of knowing. I have no way of knowing if the person I'm looking at has lost someone important to them. I have no way of knowing if they've lost 50 pounds or they put 50 pounds on. I have no way of knowing if they had, they have a great home life. I have no way of knowing their story. I don't know. So if they are rude and disrespectful, or just, they're not very nice to me, of course it hurts. But you know what? I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on. I'm going to say, okay, you have an issue. It's not my fault. I'm not the one to blame. I have to separate myself. This isn't about me. I just showed up. I walked through the door. I was there. And they're looking at me and they're like, ah, yeah. You know how it is. So it's not me. But I can take responsibility for what I say and what I do. And I will admit when I make mistakes. And when I make mistakes, I will thrive. And I will learn from them. I will learn from my mistakes. I will realize, yeah, I shouldn't say that, or I shouldn't do that, or that was kind of offensive, wasn't it? You know? And people have pointed that out. And you know what? I agree with them. I say, yes, absolutely. I'm so sorry that sounded biased. That sounded very generalized. That sounded like I was being prejudiced, or that I was fat, phobic, ableist, or racist or something. And, you know, I strive to love everybody unconditionally without judgment. I strive to do this every day. And people have laughed. They're like, oh, you know, like, I'm not capable of doing that. And I am. And I'm going to tell you, there's a difference between confidence and being comfortable to being egotistical and arrogant. Egotistical and arrogant would mean my knowledge is superior to yours, and no matter what you say, I'm going to be right. You're going to be wrong. Why? Because I am smarter than you are. My brain is far more massive than yours, and, you know, that would be me being arrogant and egotistical. Now, me saying, hey, I'm far from perfect, I make mistakes, I say things that might not make sense and might sound generalized, but that's not what I'm striving to do. I just told you what I was striving to do. So, but I apologize for offending you. That's what I'll do. Now, if they still think that I am whatever they thought I was, which was, you know, ableist or fat phobic or whatever, they continue to do that even after I admitted that I was wrong. Now, if I admit that I'm wrong, what are you going to do? If I say, yes, I was wrong. If you win an argument and you admit that I was wrong within this discussion, you win. I say, you win. I agree. I was wrong. What more can you do? Can you tell me that I'm more wrong? You're running out of fuel right there. I just admitted that I was wrong. What does that tell to you? That means I have no problem being wrong. Yes, of course I would like to be right. Of course. Who doesn't want to be right? Of course, I would love to always... I wish I could be right a lot, okay? I wish that I could be correct. But that's not always the case. I'm not always going to be right because I'm not a perfect person. So I'm going to be wrong. And I have no problem saying, hey, I'm human, I made a mistake. There you go. And if they keep going, I'm sorry, I already admitted that I was wrong. I already admitted. Oh, okay, that was a stupid thing to say. What are you going to do? Rub it in? You're going to make me feel like I'm more stupid? That's overkill. You're beating a dead horse. Do you beat a dog when it's down? No, you don't. If somebody says, hey, I'm sorry, I've had people do this, like they come off as being a troll, and then they said, you know what, I'm so sorry, you know, what I said, I didn't realize that, you know, that's what you were coming from, and, you know, I'm sorry, you know, I just was like, I was making an observation, and like, but now that you said that you were sorry, I'm sorry too, you know, they'll say that, because they're decent human beings, and some people, you know, I'll accept that, and I've actually made friends that way. Because I diffused the discussion, I shut down the argument. I completely just said, I am wrong. I didn't think of it that way. You know, you have a good, that's a good point, you know? I didn't think about it like that. And they'll say, yeah, 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 you know? And they'll recognize it. They'll recognize that it's just me being human. It's just me doing this. I'm not trying to be coming in and saying I'm a god, and I'm not. I don't walk on water. I'm far from perfect. And there should be no shame with making mistakes, especially small ones. If you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. Yet, one way or another, you're gonna have to be wrong, because then you can realize what it is to do the right thing. In order to be right and in the right, sometimes you have to be wrong. It's just part of life and going through our journey anyway. I hope you have a beautiful, blessed day, and I hope this was helpful for everybody.